Hey, this is Kahja Elliott, Bronx born and raised, ATL made, Bay Area becoming, and this is the As Told By podcast. Season 3 of the As Told By podcast. I'm back. It's been, I don't know how many months. I think last time I recorded an episode, it was July, I want to say. And my life was blowing the fuck up. And I was so glad the season was coming to an end because I needed to sit down. And I did. But now we back, season 3. And I got a good episode planned for season 3. First of all, shout out to DiffWorks, where I'm recording today's episode. The folks came, they opened up, hospitality, great setup. I'm happy to be recording here. And I'm happy to have my guests in here today. Now, different from last season, I would just point to people and let them introduce themselves. But people was on humble brags, so I'm going to be doing introductions, and then the people can fill in whatever they want to say, because we ain't doing no humble brag.
I have no idea what she has in her paper.
So, first guest, season 3, episode 1 is Niema Jordan. Niema's one of those people who I knew her name before I ever met her, and people was like, nah, you don't need to know her. No one had anything bad to say. So by the time I met her, she had like a halo overhead. But for those of you who do not know, Niema is a nationally featured journalist and filmmaker. She centers Black experience, particularly that of Black women, and she's also one of the producers of the documentary short Breeway that I had the pleasure of seeing shown at United Nations Film Festival over this summer. Documentary short was about the lasting impact of the legacy of Breonna Taylor. And she is also an Oakland native. She's like in a 3-way tie for me for the mayor of Oakland, because who does she not know? Anybody. So, Niema, thanks for coming out.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And to my immediate left, my fellow friend in all things streets, SF native Brandy Collins, who's a contributing writer for many of your favorite Bay Area publications: Oakland Side, SF Weekly, Bay City News, Thrillist, Medium, and they all have a pulse on the impact of local culture and issues. She is also one of the main plugs when it comes to things to see and do in Oakland, and she's one of the few folks who can match my street running acumen. So,
Ring, ring.
who is it?
It's the streets.
Bam.
Oh,
We made that up, y'all.
oh my God.
That's our code in between each other. Hello.
Hello. Oh, I'll be there. Yes.
Right away. So thank y'all for coming in. Now, what the two of them have in common, this is going to be fun. What the two of them have in common, if y'all didn't catch it in the intros, is they're both writers and storytellers. And it was an idea of mine to sit down and talk to them, because in the current landscape of, citizen journalism, what does it mean to be an actual journalist and a writer and a storyteller by trade? So that's what we're talking about today. So I'm just going to jump right into it. To both of you, and Niema, we'll start with you. What was your path to writing and storytelling, and did you always know that this was something you wanted to do?
Ooh, my path into writing was, I was a kid who talked too damn much. And my mama would be like, just write it down. And so that's how she got me to stop talking all the damn time. Just write it down. You can tell me about it later. And that's really where I started writing. And so that was my childhood, and grew up doing poetry slams, You Speaks, that whole space. And then when it was time to apply for college, I wanted to major in creative writing, and everybody was like, nah, you the first person going to college. You not doing creative writing. That's not gonna work, right? And so I was like, all right, maybe I'll do journalism, because that's stable. Ha ha ha. Joke's on me. Journalism not stable. Graduated during a damn recession. Magazines were falling apart. It was chaos. But that's what I did. So that's how I got into the industry. Was going to undergrad for journalism.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where'd you go?
I went to Northwestern University. I went to the Medill School of Journalism. Medill Mafia was good.
Okay.
She said gang, gang.
Gang, gang. No, like really, they call it Medill Mafia, and it's like, not a joke. I got to New York, and people would be like, la da da da, where'd you go to school? And as soon as you say Medill, they're like, oh. And I'm like, yes, give me these connections, because I fucking paid for them.
In sweat equity.
Listen.
I got that. What about you, Brandy? How'd you get started?
My journey is a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
So I was actually really introverted as a kid. And I was one of those kids that would write down song lyrics. And I wrote my own little stories and kept them all to myself. I still have binders of pieces of paper that I wrote for a very long time.
Okay.
And then when I ran away to college, because I didn't just go to college, I ran away from the projects of San Francisco. Packed up my little tough bag and a stick. I'm out. Went to Sacramento, went to Sac State, studied communication studies with the emphasis on video production, and did video production working at a TV station, graveyard shift. Working at a TV station, going to school full time, and had a graveyard shift job. Don't ask me. I was in my 20s. I was crazy. Flash forward to it's almost graduation, and parents were like, "So you need a real job?"
The dreaded real job.
The real job. You need a real job. So I went to go get a real job as a person in the world doing real job things. We don't talk about the fiscal sponsor. And then flash forward to now I'm an adult and doing other things, and get into the program called Oakland Voices, which was funded through the Maynard Institute of Journalism to teach storytelling to regular community members. Been doing that. I actually skipped a step. The thing that really triggered it was people like telling me their business. I don't.
Those people are necessary.
Yeah, but when you're sitting at a bus stop and somebody just wants to tell you something about themselves, random facts, just their whole life story. And so that was really the trigger that really was like, oh, I should probably do this for real and figure out how to get into doing it. And so that's how I got into this world that we're in now.
Life, this journalism life.
This life. Woo.
Well, I mean, the landscape seems like it's really different. You know, in that vein of citizen journalism, it feels like we're moving away from the model I always grew up hearing, which is like just the facts, right? And we're moving more towards this very editorialized version of information. Have the rules changed where this is just now the norm and we're leaning into accepting opinions presented as facts?
Yes.
Yes, and
I mean, yes, and
Yes, da, da, da.
and there, I mean, there's a lot of ands there, right? Because I think that I don't think that full objectivity was ever really a thing, and so because everyone is coming from their own space of biases, right? You always have a filter, and even if it's your super hard news, facts, you still chose to speak to certain people. There was a filter that happened there. You still decided that there were certain facts that mattered more than others. You still decided where that story was going to be placed on your website or in the magazine or wherever, right? Like you decided a value of it. You decided who the audience was. You decided the language that was. There's always some sort of editorial decision that is happening anytime you present information, right? So I think that there's that space of it. I think also objectivity was really about money, right? It's like newspapers, magazines, etc. You need ads. If you are taking one side more than the other, somebody might not want to put their ad next to it. So you need to be like a little bit more middle of the road so you can bring more money into your publication.
Okay.
Right? So there are all of these different factors that go in, and I don't think that the practice is as pure or was as pure as we like to pretend it was. Right? So that's one part of it. Is shit full blown chaotic right now? Yes, absolutely. Is there a lot of stuff that's passing as journalism that is complete fucking trash?
That part.
Absolutely.
Are there too short lyrics being presented?
We'll get there.
With Skilo's lyrics underneath it.
You want to go into that now?
She said, let's do it now.
Let's
do
go.
it now.
Let's
I
do
mean,
it.
so there's no fact checking, right? There's also like no real funding for journalism. There's no editors. There's no people who want to actually pay for their media. Like, people want to be entertained more than they want to be informed. And at the end of the day, all of this is a business. And so people are going to figure out how to fucking entertain you, right? So there's all of these things that are at play. And like, no one teaches media literacy either, right? And so it's a lot of stuff. I laid out a lot there that we can unpack, but it's a lot going on.
Okay.
And
What say you, Brandy?
And to piggyback, because one does piggyback. So in the business model of things that happen, in my experience, when people are like, where are the fact checkers? No one gets paid to fact check things. There are those that model may exist in larger publications, but when we're talking about smaller publications, local, nonprofit, those positions are done by the writer themselves and their editor and maybe one other level of management or ad person or social media person possibly, who will look it over to make sure it's clean. But outside of that, there's not a person who's like running copy across a room like, oh my God, we found the wrong something. That does not exist. That's in movies. Maybe it was in the 80s. I don't know. I'm still new to this.
well, so it's funny to hear you say that, right? Because I'll give an example of like the fact checking process for Essence, right? So I was an editor at Essence for a few years, still freelance, write for them, et cetera, and so forth. So when you send in an article, right? When you submit, you have to submit your backup paperwork. Right, so
which consists of what?
So what you're going to send is the actual text, and then you're going to highlight each of the facts that you have in there, and then you're going to say where you got that information from and what is the source of it. Right. So let's say it's a quote. You need your exact transcript, and you need where that is highlighted in that transcript to show that is something that was said. Right. If you're using a statistic, you have to say where that statistic came from. Your statistic, and you can't say like, oh, I got this from a blog, right? One of my favorite things that one of my old professors used to say, she said, never report the reporting of another reporter. She said that to us all the time. So you couldn't say like, oh, I read this in another publication, and that's how I know it's fact, right? Like, where did that fact come from, right? So there's this entire fact-checking backup process that you submit with your article. And then someone from the fact-checking team goes back and says, did she actually fact-check her own stuff properly? Are these sources that are coming in actually accurate, right? Like, there's this entire space that goes along with it, right? Like, that's a proper fact-checking process, right? And then you have your levels to it for, like, newspaper or for broadcast media. You have all of these different spaces. When you get into these crazy ass turnaround times, when you get into this lack of funding, when you get to everybody trying to be first for something, right? You start to have a lot of the stopgaps fall apart.
But we're also talking about money too, and we're talking about whether or not that funding actually exists, because you're talking about Essence. We're not talking about local low nonprofit journalism, or if there is something along those lines with a nonprofit journalism publication. What I've experienced was I have to do all of the digging, all of the finding myself, and then there's someone else who edits. We run back and forth 1,000,001 times, and then of course on the back end there's someone else who's probably looking at it, but there's not like a team of people doing all of that work. Though that money doesn't exist. And let's talk about, if we're going to go into money, because journalists don't get paid that much. Pay us, please. Thank you.
Ching, ching. Well, I feel like I heard you all making the point about speed of information, right? Which in a social media environment is, to me, is almost more than half of the journey. Do you think there is some value to report first, do a think piece later, right? To be first to the buzzer to break information?
I don't think so. I think, and please correct me because I'm always wrong. I think I've experienced this with other journalists where we'll tell the same story. Neither one of us has to be first. It does not have to happen. I don't have to break news. I don't have to tell the story first. Your story is going to be different than mine. And every single time, it's nice to be first sometimes, but it's also, I'd rather be correct. And that's a little more important to me, to be correct with the information. And I'm okay with being corrected. But being first to the line isn't as important as getting the information right and making sure I'm serving my community correctly. Because let's talk about where journalism is supposed to serve its communities, or who it's supposed to serve, in my perspective.
So is there like our personal value on being first, or is this
I'll hear both.
Because I mean, like, yes, like it's important to be accurate, right? But if you just think of the way things are structured right now, the push is to be the first person to report it, right? Like that's what the push is. The push is, I remember when Michael Jackson died. And
Talk about it.
I remember like the rush for the false reports, and people were trying to be the first person to break it. TMZ broke it first, right?
As they do.
As they do. And also like they lawyers are crazy on point, right? So like once it came through, it was like, well, that was done, because the lawyers gonna make sure they lawyered up about it, right? But it's interesting. It was this, who is gonna break it first? Even now, more so, I think, than before, because people don't report anymore, and they spend a whole bunch of time repurposing content and reporting the reporting of another reporter, right? So when you, and that's like, if you go back a few years to when online publications started really developing their engagement by aggregating content instead of creating it, right? And so then you have another space where it's important for you to be first, because you're just going to be the person who's cited all the time, because people are not going to go and do their own reporting because they don't have a staff, they don't have a team, right? And so I think that there is something to being first, right? Should you be accurate? Should you be on point? Yes. In a space where you can quickly print a retraction, right? Because it's a matter of just going in on the back end, hitting delete, typing something new, putting the asterisk, saying my bad, versus, back when Oakland had a newspaper,
that print,
if you
print
think
is very different.
when you think about like the print world of things, right? You mess something up, you gotta wait until
next edition,
it's printed all over again. But we all online for the most part. You say something wrong, you be like, oh shit, that was wrong. Delete. All right, new copy up, right? So,
but there's still a little filter there, because I have to say that if my editor is unavailable, it's going to take a couple hours before they do it, because I don't upload directly. Right. I'm not doing, not every writer is doing this directly. I'm freelance, so I have to go through the publication and have them do the correction, and they'll make the edits. There has been, I'm going to tell you this one. There has been a time where I made an error on something that someone didn't like, and she contacted me, emailed me 3 or 4 times. I'm like, I sent it to my editor. She will do it. And the woman decided she wanted to make a whole bunch of vast threats. I'm like, it's been 2 hours. Slow down. She will get to it. You'll be fine. But that kind of stuff is like, it takes a lot of different people, a lot of different moving parts to make that happen.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and it's just the overall point is that this you were saying the speed of information, right? The speed of information, the speed of publication, like you see it across the board. Like if you think back, there was a time when like the news cycle wasn't 24 hours, right? There was a time where people weren't breaking news on social media. There was a time where, you know, you got your 6 a.m., you knew, you know, whatever that space is, right? We have so much more content now. And that's not even getting to the space of when you were saying earlier, like the citizen journalism, right? That's also not getting into the space of what artists having the resources and platforms to control their own narrative has done to actual reporting, right? Because if you take it out of the hard news and you take it just on the face of entertainment media, now you have people who it's like sometimes they're not even telling the full truth in their reviews or how they're positioning things, and a lot of stuff becoming fluff pieces because they want to be able to have the access to the artist. Because if they say something the artist don't like, the artist doesn't actually need your magazine cover because don't nobody actually buy your fucking magazine. So they just put it up on their own Instagram.
Talk your shit.
Hello, right? So like... Can y'all tell I be doing this and I be teaching this? It's
real. But it's the realest thing.
People.
It is so real. And then, hold on, we're going to go on a rant now. So then there's also the people who go into situations. Nobody's talking about this. Did you Google it first? Because I'm pretty sure at least 3 articles were already published about.
Nobody's talking about this thing that I just posted an article link to.
Right. Like I have, oh my God. So I pay attention to the social medias. I do. I spend way too much time on it. But when I see every time on my social feed, no one's talking about this, I am one of those people that will go and Google that article and drop all of the links under whatever you just said no one's talking about. Yes, they are talking about it. You don't read it. You are waiting for someone to passively pass it across your timeline. And because it did not happen, you believe that no one is talking about it. We are talking about it. You don't read. You don't read.
You don't read.
To
that point with the rush.
Sorry,
right?
that was personal.
That's okay.
That felt really
she needed to get that
personal.
off.
I've been waiting for that.
I was like, ooh,
you needed that moment.
That was a visualization happening there. You was talking to somebody very specific.
Very specific. She knows who she is. These toxic views are no relation to any publication.
Own your own
These
statements.
are all my statements. My toxicity is my own.
Lord.
So with the speed of like trying to get the information out, how do you think journalists measure their?
Make sure you're talking to the mic, please.
Okay. So with the conversation around the speed of getting out information, how do you think journalists measure success when it can feel, I would imagine, like your next success is the story in front of you?
My next success is every story I've already told and the next story. I'm not going to base it on one story because that just feels like clickbait to me. And it also feels like that I'm not here doing the work. I'm looking to get famous. I'm not trying to get famous. Trust me. Journalists get doxxed. Journalists get called out, which is another rant I have. If you're going to shout out the publication, you better shout out the writer. Just saying. Sorry, I'm personal today. This is a lot. I got a
Tell
lot.
them why you mad, son.
I'm here for it.
Yo, everybody dies. Me, no, just oh my God. Well, no, what ends up happening is, at least from my perspective, is that, you know, we get flamed frequently for making an error. We get flamed frequently. I mean, some people rightfully deserve to, especially when they quote the wrong lyrics of a very well-known rapper in a publication that people do read.
That poor child.
That poor baby. That baby. Okay.
I know she.
Are you ready? You go into it. Go ahead, Niema, because you had thoughts.
No. I thought we were talking the success. Let's talk about success.
Okay,
Well, let's do that. We'll put a pin in that. We'll get back to it.
Okay. So I forgot what I was saying. What?
That's okay.
How do you measure success? Well, so Kahja's like, what is the the level of like, how do you measure success as a journalist, right? Is it the next article that's in front of you? You saying it's your whole body of work and what's coming up next.
Right. Yes. Essentially, it's my whole body of work and how I'm impacting the community. And what's really interesting is there's a lot of people I've interviewed that I'd never met before in person. And when they finally do meet me, they're like, oh my God, thank you so much for this, da, 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 da. So I'm measuring success for, did I do what I set out to do, was to tell your story? Did I do the intentional thing of making sure that I did the right thing by your story? And did I instill a level of trust in journalism again? Because that is something that I have been really, really trying in my own twisted, toxic way to make sure to re-inform people that not every journalist is out to get you. Not every reporter wants to ruin your life and expose something about you.
Turn you into a soundbite.
Not every journalist wants you to fail. I'm not the kind of person who's going to look for your death certificate or hide in your bushes. I'm not doing that. What I want to do is make sure I highlight the positive parts of the community to make them or anyone who's telling their story feel confident with telling their story publicly. That's it. That's how I measure success.
What you think, Niema?
You just said so many things that like my brain is going like, where do I comment? Where do I comment? And y'all, like, I have a notepad here because I was like, they gonna say stuff and I'm gonna need to write it down so I know what I want to come back to. So I think that on the question of success, I think there's a lot of things at play there, right? Because there is your personal success as a journalist and as a creative or a storyteller or however you're framing it, right? There is the success in terms of what the publication believes is a successful story, right? That can have a lot to do with reach. How many folks are reading it, quoting it, whatever. That could have a lot to do with awards, right? Like, is this something that's going to be on the list for Society of Professional Journalists, right? Is this something that is going to be archived in a particular way, right? Like, I always learned that journalism is the first draft of history, right? So when you look at it like that, there's an entirely different weight put on what you put out into the world. It is the first draft of history. When people are writing books, when they are referencing things, when they are coming back, they're going to say, okay, well, in this article that was written the day after, in this headline from 10 years ago, right? And I don't think that people often, outside of journalism, I don't think that people really focus on the weight of it or understand the weight of the things that are being put out into the world in that way, right? We are so immediate in the now. We are consuming content upon content upon content. We're not thinking about, like, this is, like you were saying, your body of work, but this goes into a story. This goes into a legacy. This is archived. People are going to reference this. Is this what you want people referencing? So when I look at the work that I put out, I'm like, years from now, when my great grandkids look up whatever, I don't know if it's going to be, if they Google me or whatever the hell they look up, like, what is attached to my name, right? So when I think about my personal success, I think about legacy. I think about, like, was I writing bullshit? It's, like, very basic.
This is why she my writer girl crush.
Was I?
Just had this right now. Like, y'all don't even understand.
But it's like, was I writing bullshit? Like, do I want my name attached to that, right? So I think that that's the personal success, and then, measured against, like, whatever your publications are thinking of as success. I remember back when Twitter was, like, first starting to pop, and publications were trying to figure out your online presence, and you would apply for things, and they wanted to know how many Twitter followers you had before assigning stuff out to you, because they were trying to figure out if you could bring more eyes to their publication, right? Like, this is how you get into a lot of that personality stuff, a lot of that people want to be journalists in order to be famous, because they don't understand that, like, everybody don't get to be Jamel Hill, and that also Jamel Hill put in real fucking work before the end. You know what I mean? Like, before social media was a thing, like, Jamel was in the trenches doing real work, right? So, like, people don't really get that because they see the end result, right? So, you know, that success conversation can go a lot of ways. The other thing that I thought about, though, as you were talking, was I'm not hiding in the bushes. I'm not trying to expose you. And that's true for my work, but some motherfuckers need to be exposed, right? And
There is
so,
that. Yes.
you know, and so I think the other thing about it is, like, I want readers, and I want people to trust journalism. I want people to vet journalism, right? I want people to understand. I want people to have a level of media literacy, right? I also want people to understand that, like, journalism is key to democracy. Journalism is key to accountability. Like, you need folks who are out here who are not afraid to say some shit, who are not afraid to call people out, who are not afraid to send out FOIA requests and find the documents that you're hiding. You need people who are going to do for real investigative journalism to expose what is happening in the world, because the reason you have so many shady people spending so much money to buy platforms
Wait, what you mean by that?
to hide information. Right? Like, just, I don't know, just think,
No,
you know,
just,
however you want to interpret. But, like, you have to think about that, right? So some people be afraid, be very afraid of the journalist that's out there. I hope they get your ass.
This toxicity is not related to any publication or employers. We own our own shit.
I hope my girl. I was just thinking about investigative journalism, and I was like, I hope my girl Baranda get a hold of your FOIA requests. I mean, all of your paperwork and her FOIA requests, and, like, puts the shit on TikTok. Like, I need that kind of energy for some people.
No, when I'm saying that, well, so here I'm talking about local scale. I'm talking about if I'm having a regular conversation with someone, I am not looking to expose you and your sock collection. Like, don't tell me off the record. I don't need to. Why are we having a conversation about random music and be like, off the record though? Bruh, don't nobody want to tell your story.
Right.
Listen.
No, I definitely get that, but that's
That part. That's what I meant.
That's what I was saying. Like, I get what you're saying in terms of community, but I think that, like, this other space is, like, it's really important to, like, we need that hard hitting journalism. We need that investigative. We need that, you know, Freedom of Information Act. Get all your stuff
Right.
You know.
When it's the appropriate time to take that on, yes. But for the average individual who's just like, I'm just trying to sell cookies. Oh, okay, cool. Let's sell them cookies. Let's do some. That's simple. But when we're talking about corruption, get them.
Yeah.
Go hard in the paint.
That went so many places, y'all.
It did.
This
It's partly because we're trying to also, anybody who's listening, and hopefully people listen, we want them to understand we're human beings first. And we have thoughts and opinions, and we're doing the work for the reasons that we're doing the work. We're here doing it. We just need to get paid, y'all. I'm just saying. We ain't getting paid a lot. Just put some money in the pockets.
But also, people not getting paid a lot is why you have folks who are veering from being journalists and being content creators instead. It's why you have people who would rather not tell the full truth about things so they can get a sponsorship, right? Because they want to walk a red carpet, or they want to do branded content, and they want to, blur the lines between what is journalism and what is not journalism. And it's that. So back to the where media is changing and the landscape is changing. A lot of it, as we've been saying, is financial, right? And so we have so many new models now of creating. We have so many new models of storytelling that it is even more important that you as an audience member understand who is presenting the content to you. Like you have to, there's so much that looks like news. There's so much that looks like documentary. There's so much that looks like a magazine article. And it's all advertorial. It's all marketing, right? I used to work at Square in the marketing department, but I was on the editorial team, right? We were creating editorial content to develop a sense of trust in the brand, right? And to tell these different stories. But it's not journalism.
It's relationship building.
That's marketing. It's marketing, right? And so you have to know when people are marketing to you.
Yes. And that journalism, the PR pipeline is really, really not easy to slide into. And we've talked about this before, where it seems very appealing just to slide right into it because that's where the money is. That's where the attention is. That's where the content, the red carpet, there's the trick bells and whistles of what people want. I just want to pay my bills and go on vacation. That's it.
You said travel, dine, go to concerts.
That's all I really want in life. I just want to do those things. But I need to be able to do that.
Sustain oneself.
Yes.
Well, I mean, to the point of, not telling a story to the degree where you suck all the humanity out of it. I mentioned in the intro that Niema was one of the producers for Breeway, which was a documentary short on not just the life of Breonna Taylor, but also this kind of juncture that came about as a result of the tragedy of her life being lost, of art inclusivity. And I wanted to ask you, when we look at the humanity of her, not only remembering who she was, but also what she was on the precipice of becoming, as one of the producers with so many relevant areas of focus that you could have connected to for her story, what made you focus on that specifically?
I'm like, let me sit, because you took me out of my journalism rant into my every time. I'm telling y'all, every time I think about Breonna, it's so wild. There's so many things. I think about how I had photos in my phone saved from different things I had seen on social media, before I ever started working on the project about her, right? Because her death just hit me, right? But when you talk about what to focus on, I think it's because of what was already out there in the media, right? You had countless, this is what we think happened. Here's a play-by-play of how we think the police officers came in. You had all of these different spaces. You had, for so many folks, she was a hashtag, and there was nothing. They knew nothing else beyond the hashtag. They knew nothing about her life. They didn't know about her mother or her sister or her fiance, right? It wasn't the focus. The other thing is that there was so much content that was already out there that was really that didn't have any joy in it, right? And we set out to create something that was not just information, but something that felt healing. So in the documentary, Amy Sherrill, who painted the portrait of Breonna that was on the cover of Vanity Fair and then was featured in this exhibit, she said she created the piece because she wanted the piece to feel like a balm in Gilead. And that was something that we thought about in the creation of the documentary. Again, all of the things to include, it's like, we don't have to walk through the play-by-play of that day, right? But we were able to get access to things that other people hadn't seen before, right? Partly because of this humanity piece that Brandy talks about, right? Which, when I spoke with Tamika Palmer, is Breonna Taylor's mother. When I spoke with Tamika, she was like, I am tired of talking to people because people are using my daughter's death as a come up. Like, they're not trying to tell her story. They know that there are eyes on this story and they're trying to advance their careers. They're trying to, so there were all of these different elements at play. And so our approach was, how do we tell a story that is about her legacy, about her humanity, about her family, about who she is as a person, and not about her death, right? And so that is what we had the space and time and sort of freedom within the documentary structure to do, and so that's what the focus was.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
How much does that tokenism or that symbolism take away from the humanity of telling a story? If I'm asking the question right, I don't even know.
The symbolism of like
putting an individual and putting them in this pedestal, because it was a very powerful movement that needed to happen, but how much of that becomes, she is so symbolic that she is no longer human, and it makes it so difficult to tell the story. How difficult was it to pull that out or pull back from it?
I think that the focus there had to be, I have a lot of thoughts. Okay, so yes, it's difficult because Breonna meant something to everybody suddenly, right? Clearly not everybody, because some people are trash, but whatever. But Breonna meant so much to so many different people. I remember there was a point where I was trying to get some photos that we could include, and Kenny is her fiance. He was like, nah, like, you just can't, y'all can't have these photos. Yep. Because I have to have something that I can keep for myself. Everybody has a piece of her. I need something that I can keep for myself. Talking to her mother, talking to her sister, we had to get to the core of it, because literally everybody had something to say, a story, a way that she impacted. And it got to their own lives, how they connected to her, and so you have to dial it back. All right, yes, she has this impact. Yes, you connected to her in this way. Okay, who was she? What did she want for her life? Right? Not what you imagine she wanted for her life because she's the same age as you, or yeah. And those things are important because that's how we connect to people, and that's how we connect to story. But we had to keep dialing back and saying, who is this about? Right? And so that is something that's difficult because everybody has their attachment. Like I said, I have photos. So I have my own attachment too, right? As storytellers, we have our attachments and our filters by which we create and we produce things. And so, it is a constant check of saying, what is important here? Who is this story for? And yeah, there was also like a very, I feel like, spiritual aspect where like I would check in. I'd be like, we good? Because we good? Okay.
Yeah.
And so that was definitely happening there too.
You want to make sure you had it right. And I think watching it, first of all, I was super proud of you watching it. It was so good. And it was so humanizing, right? Because to your point, it wasn't it for majority of people it was a news story, right? This horrible story. But I think for me what stood out was the dichotomy of the joy and the sadness of it, which was, oh, I know this girl, right? And I could see who she would have been 5-10 years down the road. Yeah. So I was so glad that you captured that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You lightweight read me for filth though. Because I did right, like I did mine on about just being a Black woman, and I need to go lay down.
Yeah,
because this is hard for Black women in general.
Well, no, and that's not, you know.
But it wasn't reading for filth.
I was gonna say, I was like, come on now. Well, no, I mean, you know, I wrote a piece about Nia Wilson, and my Nia Wilson piece was all about like, bro, like I be at MacArthur BART Station, like this shit's great. You know, we have our personal connection, but the question you asked me to call me out about my process is what I was responding to. I wasn't reading you. I got you. I was like, oh, she about to go journalist on me. I got you.
No, I had to, but it was it's a real question because it's process and it's an educational portion. Like even for me as a new journalist, not to overtake the thing, but as a journalist, a newer journalist or early career, it's supposed to be, I have to learn what that means on someone else's level. What does that look like? How does it feel? What does it mean to bring it back to the humanity? And that's what I was asking. Yeah.
Well, that happened. That was done. Checkbox accomplished. You know, for those people who are listening who might be in the early stages of their journalism career, there's definitely this outline path for success that you associate with other places, you know, namely LA, New York, right? What has kept you both in the Bay, and what do you say to the school of thought that not being physically located in one of these places limits your access and ability in the field?
I'm not leaving my home if I can afford to stay here. I'm not going if I can't. I'm born and raised here. Unicorn. Because there's not many of us left.
It's not. I'm in the transplant box.
It's fine. I mean, it's a port city. We're in port cities. Everyone comes and goes, but some of us like to stay. And I have no intentions of going if I can help it. But I also think that being able to tell stories here authentically about the people who are here, who are doing work here, building and maintaining, is very important to me. I think there's a different culture someplace else, and I'm almost certain those other major market cities, they're important to them, but there's also a lot of different culture everywhere. So we don't all have to be in the same space. I mean, I don't know, because I don't think everyone has to be in the same space. It creates a homogenous voice where everyone goes to one location and everyone is saying the same things, because it creates a hive mind, a bubble where there is no originality. Where's the culture? Like if we're all, I mean, and LA's a flight or a drive away from us, so it's not like you have to live there. But you don't have to live in Oakland either. You can also go be there. That's fine. We're okay with that. It's crowded here. Don't come. We're full. It's expensive.
That it is.
But what I'm saying is basically we need various things to be in various places. I like going to a place to experience something. A friend of mine was talking about how she doesn't like that we can't get New York bagels here. I'm like, we'll go to New York. It's okay. That's
and you actually can. And you can get a Bialy as well. Holler at me if you need to know.
You know what I'm saying? But it's something.
There's, I got the food plug.
She said
the places.
Kahja knows where to go to eat. I'm like, she finds places. I'm like, Where? In an alleyway someplace. She's like, I found a new Thai restaurant. How, Kahja? How?
Thai Alley. That's right.
But there's something to be said about going someplace to experience something and feeling in that environment, in that world. And I appreciate that. Come to the Bay to experience the Bay and experience what is offered here and what is built here as a culture and as a, you know, as people here, or something, words. But that's all I got.
Words. Let me just. Okay. So the question is, what again?
The question is, people feeling that this kind of career path is hindered by not being in, you know, these metropolises that people associate with the work, LA, New York, you know. What are your thoughts about, I don't have to be in a particular place in order to tell those stories, have access to those stories, and have career trajectory in it?
Lots of thoughts. Okay. So one, I would say that in most ways, your thoughts create your life. So if you think you got to be somewhere else to get some shit done, you got to be somewhere else to get some shit done. You're not really going to find a way around it. So that's one. That's one. I think there's a lot of value in going to your hub city for your industry. There's a lot of value in it. It's why folks flock here for tech companies. It's why I moved to New York after college to work in magazines, right? It's why people who want to be on scripted television shows for major networks go to LA, right? There are career paths that if you're doing the more traditional route of it and you want to operate at a certain level or at a certain publication, right, you need to be where you can get access to those people, because it's really, so a lot of this is like, how do you imagine your career? How do you define success? Where do you want to be, right? So there's a part of that. The other thing is that if you have access to the resources, you can get to the spots. You don't necessarily have to be there all the time, right? So that's maybe not the truth for somebody who is very early in their career, right? But, you know, I'm at a space in my life right now where I'm like, I got a kid to take care of, and I need to make sure I got family around who can babysit him, so I'm not moving to LA. What's good? You need me down there for the week to network and meet some people? Cool, I'll be there for the week, but then I'm taking my ass back to Oakland, right? Okay. Like, you know, so, but that's the space that I'm in. I think the other thing is that we have to be very real about what the internet has done. And not only do we have to be very real about what the internet has done, we have to be very real about what COVID has done in terms of how it has transformed how people think about location. A lot of folks think that COVID opened up this space for more remote work and digital nomad and all of this space in terms of a lot of other businesses and career fields, but it did that in media as well. I have been on projects that I know for a fact I wouldn't have been on unless everybody had moved to that Zoom life for a while.
Okay.
Right? And so there are more opportunities that are open now because people are realizing I don't have to be in the office with them. I fly out for my shoots. Like, I work out of my house in East Oakland every day. That's where I be. In East Oakland, just in the house.
She in the streets too, don't worry.
And sometimes I'll be in the streets. I don't be in the streets with y'all all the time. Like, the streets got y'all number.
They do.
I be having to check in with y'all. Like, can I come to the streets too? No, but a lot of the stuff, like for the way everything is structured for me now, is I go to my shoots and then I come back home to Oakland, right? And so I say all of that to say is like there are opportunities, but there are also a lot of folks who are doing work here at home to make it to where folks don't have to leave. Like, I came back home specifically because I didn't want folks growing up here to feel like in order to be successful, you had to leave home. Because the story I was told was that if I, like, oh, you're so smart, and if you want to make something of yourself and la da da da, like you got to get out of Oakland, and then you get back home and you be like, so I had to leave Oakland, but everybody else can come here and be successful. There's some shit that don't add up.
Again, we're full. You don't have to come.
There's some, but there's something that doesn't add up in terms of what people are told about Oakland. I was told to leave Oakland. Other people are told to come here. There is something that is happening there, and we have to make sure that we're not having. What my best friend's dad always talks about is like this cultural and brain like sort of like, I guess, like just all of the resources being sucked out of Oakland, right? Like the creative minds and the people who are from here being like drained out of the space, right? Like how do you create and keep and culture keep and place keep in Oakland? And part of that is by not telling your children that they have to leave in order to be successful. But part of the reason that it's hard for them to like visualize that they can be successful at home is because a lot of times the people who are successful in what they want to do don't come back home once they get successful or don't tap back in, right? And so there's this space. I think about it I talk about it all the time. Like you can't go to no city and be around major players and not meet somebody from the Bay.
Right.
Like we put on.
Y'all out here.
The Bay represents the Bay every single time.
Listen, people gonna tell you they from Oakland. You be like, can't go ain't nobody ever met me and not known I was from Oakland. You know what I mean? Like we do these things.
I'm from the city. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
But it's the same.
No, yeah.
People gonna be like, it's a city situation.
It's a city situation. We out here. What is it?
But the point is that like there are folks from the Bay Area that are at the top of every field, right? There are people who are from the Bay Area, Oakland, San Francisco, Berkeley, whatever, who have major network deals, who have major publications and writing, who have all of this space. And so I think it's important to also say that there's something special about this place that developed all those folks. And so what does it mean for this to be a space where these folks can stay as well?
Yeah.
What's interesting is that almost every major artist comes to the Bay Area. Prince came here. Carlos Santana came here. Bob Marley was stranded by... I heard this story from somebody else. It may not be true. But apparently Bob Marley was stranded in the Bay Area for a while before he could go home because, was it Sly Stone? Someone had abandoned him. He was on tour with them. I don't know the real story. I have no clue. Somebody will have to look it up. But this is a story that I heard third-hand reporter reporting on somebody else's reporting.
But you still citing your source. So
I'm telling you, I may not be correct. Somebody look it up. But apparently artists... creatives come to the Bay Area and create something magical. Like Prince found Sheila E. here. And people come and create here and develop something here and then send it off into the world. Why do we always have to leave to create? Why do we, as people who have grown up here, and that's to your point, Niema, to create something great, and then we have to come back home? Can't we create here and develop here and build here together, people, as a community?
and can y'all get your proper recognition? I have been in Seattle recently, and I went to MoPop, a museum of pop culture, because they had an exhibit called Contact High, which was a photographic gallery exhibit on the history of hip hop. And I was shocked as I walked through the whole exhibit to find, and I mean zero because I was looking, zero Bay Area representation. Everything that was West Coast representative was LA. And I'm like, okay, even if you didn't get into maybe the artists that people didn't know in mainstream, because I'm not from the Bay, so I don't know all the ones that were in mainstream, but no E40, no Too Short, no Digital Underground, no Diggable Planets. Like these were artists that even growing up in the Bronx we have visibility to, right? And even during my time living in the South, we had visibility to them. So when you think about the Ryan Cooglers, right? When you think about Blind Spotting on Showtime, right? When you think about these front-facing projects that are now starting to be visible, that are getting to what the heart of the Bay Area is, do you feel encouraged that that perception of not being here to be successful is turning around?
I have no idea. That's a good question. I am stumped.
I stumped a journalist.
It's easy to stump me. It's fine.
Okay.
It's not that hard. You see, I can't say words all the time. That's why I sit behind a computer. Those are where my words are. No, I think, I don't think it's changing. I think it's shifting a little bit, but not changing overall. As we were, and Niema pointed out so eloquently, again, this is why she's my journalist girl crush. We have been told to leave. We're still telling people they have to go someplace else, even after COVID, even after the pandemic, telework, whatever the circumstances are, it's still being told you have to go out, which I guess it's kind of the hero's journey. You have to leave home to find home. It's a possibility that's the case, but I think it's a shift. I think there's more
Joseph Campbell reference. I'm not missing that.
I think there's a focus of we do need to go somewhere to find ourselves or find our creative, but we're also telling everyone you have to go out into the world and see something else, bring it back. I forgot what my point was, but yeah, I don't think it's changing at all. I think it's a shift and bringing more attention to the Bay Area, but not necessarily making it any easier.
I think that if you want to leave home, leave home. Like, go, fly, flourish. I'm here for it, right? If you don't want to leave home, I want there to be something here for you, right? So I'll say that, right? Because I done left, you know what I mean? I done came back, shout out to all my folks who, are other places, but as you know, like we carry our home with us. And so, folks are always putting on. I think that you see some things that are really interesting. When you mentioned blind spotting, I was like, I would be remiss to not talk about the fact that when the blind spotting team is here, because granted, they don't shoot the entire series here, right? Ooh, I'm about to go into some shit. Okay, so they don't shoot the entire series here, and if somebody from the city of Oakland want to call me so I can go in and talk about the lack of benefits, the lack of incentives, the lack of affordable housing, the lack of all of these other things that make other cities more profitable for places to actually film in, get at me. I got thoughts, right? So they can't do the entire series here, but they can come here and shoot some of the key scenes here, right? This is how budgets work, and they, shoot the rest of it other places, whatever. But they make sure to put on they make sure to actually shoot some of it here in Oakland and cast people who are here in Oakland and do things here in Oakland. They also do a writer's workshop every time. And
I didn't know that.
And you have to be from the Bay Area in order to participate, right? And so there's this way that folks who are from here are trying to open up the doors, right? So that then everybody doesn't have to leave. And I think that is really beautiful to see, because I think it's really easy to get caught up in this idea that folks who leave home to make it then don't care about home, right? And what we can see in, what I see specifically in my friend group and circle that I came up with is like, we're not trying to move like that, right? And so that's one of the things that I think is the most encouraging, right? The fact that folks are getting up to a space where they have enough of a platform that they can make certain demands to make sure that something is still coming back to home, right? All of the music featured in Blind Spotting is all Bay Area artists. So like I can't shoot here all the time, but I can make sure that people who are from here are still getting their bread, right? Like those are the sort of things that we think about collectively that have been really encouraging. Like, you know, do people still feel like they need to leave to do certain things? Yes, but it's also what are the things you want to do? If you want to make something that's not necessarily, you know, on a major studio, like maybe you don't feel like you have to go there. It's a whole bunch. I feel like I'm random, but you know,
It's okay.
it's a lot.
You said all the things.
All
Thank
the
you.
things.
Thank you.
Well, I will tell you, you know, of so many of the people so many of the creators, I should say, that I have gotten to know and partner with in the course of producing this podcast. This is one of the conversations I was most excited to sit down to have, because y'all represent the Bay so well. You do in your storytelling, and in the way you keep. I don't know how you do it, and I don't really know how to define it exactly, but you keep this very Bay-specific, Bay-centric lens on what you do and the way you do it. So for a transplant like me, I appreciate it. Y'all giving me a glimpse into the culture? Yes.
Thank you.
Tell the people what y'all got coming up next. What you working on?
I can't say.
Okay.
Well, so I'm like, what can I say? I'm currently working on a documentary series that will be out sometime next year. Okay. I cannot give details about said documentary series, but if you get on my email list or follow me on socials, sometimes I'm on it, sometimes I'm not. But if you know, I randomly pop up and I'll post some shit.
You're like, hey, this
So that I'm working on something I can say that I have not said publicly yet. So I don't know when
breaking
this is
news.
Breaking.
Come on, talk about being first. I don't know when this is going to air, but I am doing TEDx Berkeley
Nice.
January 28th.
Uh-oh.
And the theme for that day is around media and television and those sort of things. So I'm working on what my idea worth spreading about media is going to be. So this was a good brainstorming session here.
Listen.
For the speech, yeah, I mean.
But this episode will be out prior to January 28th.
Oh,
so
look, there we go.
y'all got the jump on the information.
There we go.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Yes, congratulations, ma'am.
Thank you.
I told you look at her doing. I'll be proud of her sometimes. Oh, I'm just writing continuously, usually goblin mode in my pajamas in my living room in the middle of the night. So that's all of my work it comes and goes in waves. So follow the social media so that you can see where the articles are coming from, because that's pretty much it.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's
I mean
that's enough.
Well, I mean, I have
Her byline be everywhere, y'all. She out here playing real games right now. She playing real games right now.
I just write things. I just want to make sure I tell the right stories and tell the stories of the peoples. And sometimes you'll see me at an event somewhere standing. If you see me in the middle of a dance floor somewhere, I'm probably writing something. Most of the time, I'm writing on my phone in the middle of a club. I swear I do it.
Catch that thought.
Right. The music just be moving me. I'm like, oh, I got a thought. Let me write it on my phone. That's pretty much it. So Story Soul Collector is the social, the Instagram.
I'll be dropping both their socials with the episode, but thank you so much for opening up season 3 of the As Told by podcast. Links to both of these amazing women will be included with the episode. So shout out to them for all they do to represent Oakland culture, and shout out to the sponsor for this episode, Diff Work Studios in Oakland.
Shout out to them. Oh, I meant to say shout out one more thing.
Yes.
Shout out to the individuals who screenshot incorrect information and do not post those links to them so that they're not getting the traffic, but that's just another thing. Thank you. You're welcome.
That's the bypass route.
Go ahead and do that.
To not get no heat, no fire.
I'm gonna just leave it at that.
Hey. Well, if in between this episode and next you want to swing by my social and get to know me a little bit better, you can find me at Kahja versus Kahja. That's KAHJA_VS_KAHJA. That's episode 1, season 3. I'll see y'all on the next one. Peace.